Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. I'm a life and marriage coach for moms, wife, mom of 3, and I'm also an Aries, and for my fellow human design nerds, a sacral manifesting generator. This podcast is for women who want to be happier in their marriage as they navigate their journey through motherhood, even if you're like me and you weren't shown how while growing up. Inside, we're going to be talking about breaking generational cycles when it comes to how to handle conflict in healthy ways, redefining motherhood your way, and prioritizing your well-being, because here, we believe that women don't have to sacrifice their happiness to be a great mom. And a quick note to mamas listening with kids around, you may want to pop your earbuds in because nothing is left unsaid on this show, which means there may be times where something I say isn't meant for little ears. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. This week is a really special episode. And yes, I know I say that every time I have a guest, but I just love my guests so much. And you're going to really love this episode's guest. This is Amberly. She focuses on prioritizing your marriage. And I've been talking a lot about connection and maintaining that connection and how connection really takes effort. And so who better than to have someone that talks about how to prioritize your marriage every day, all day, than Amberly. So let me introduce you to Amberly. She is a certified family life educator with a passion for helping married couples make their marriage a priority throughout every stage of life. Amberly shares creative date night solutions, tips for increased emotional and physical intimacy, ideas for having more fun, and practical ways couples can make time for their marriage every day. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm really excited to chat with you, Michelle.
Yeah. So, can you share with us a little bit about yourself? So, where do you live? How old are your kids? And can you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, so I live in Utah. I have 2 kids. They're ages 7 and 6. I almost forgot for a second. They are 16 months apart, so our house is a constant adventure. I keep saying it'll be less of an adventure when they get older, and it just changes.
Yep.
We also have a dog. He's kind of sitting over here. He might start snoring, so if you heard that in the background, that's him. He's 9 years old. So he's like our 3rd child. He is the problem child sometimes. And like you said, I focus on marriage. So I just recently finished my certification to become a family life educator. So I had to go through my school program. I got a bachelor's degree in family studies. And then I had to accumulate 3,200, I think is what it is, work hours. It's the low 3,000s, work hours in the family sciences field to become a certified family life educator. And I'm currently going to school for my master's in education with a family life education emphasis. So this is my passion. It's what I love. It took me a little bit to get here. I just turned 34, so I'm doing this all a little later in life. I took big gaps between schooling, but I love what I do, and I come at it from both a professional and a personal standpoint. So I have all this research that I do. I have the knowledge. I have the education to back up what I'm sharing, but I also share a lot from personal experience. Like, here's something we experienced, and here's what I feel we did well. Here's what I feel like we should have done differently, and kind of take a step back and share that from my own personal experience. But my goal, like you said, is to help couples make their marriage a priority throughout every stage of life, whether they're preparing to get married, they're newlyweds, they're in the thick of parenting young kids, or they're kind of settled into their careers and parenting, or they're older and don't have kids, or they're retired, all those kinds of things. I believe it's important to continue to make your marriage a priority every day so that you're continuing to build that strong, enjoyable, long-lasting marriage.
Yeah, I love what you do so much. Now, for those of you who don't know her, I have actually I've been connected with Amberly since the start of my business, actually. So it's been years now. And as I've watched her Instagram stories and posts, she truly embodies what she educates people on. So she's a fantastic person to learn from. She will tell you exactly
how it is, and in practical ways too. Like they're not hard to do. It does take effort, but they're not hard, and it really does depend on like the intention that you're setting. And I'm just gonna let like her tell you everything that she has to share, but you are in really great hands for this episode. So tell us, what led you to become a family and marriage educator?
Okay, so it's kind of a funny story. I never wanted to go to real college, as I would say. I went to cosmetology school out of high school and worked in a salon for a couple of years. And then I kind of was like, maybe I should go get my associate's degree. And so I just decided to enroll and start doing my generals, and that was my plan. And within the first year of doing my generals, I was doing mostly online classes. And so I kind of went through the catalog for my school and was looking at what can I take online that sounds interesting to me, that sounds fun, that I want to do. And as I made this list of classes, I saw a lot of them were in the early childhood family studies field. They've kind of changed the name. They've separated things. So I can't remember what it was then. And so I kind of looked into it more. And I originally decided to go into family studies because I've always been interested in music therapy and how music therapy works with Alzheimer's patients, actually, from personal experiences with my grandpa and his Alzheimer's unit. And that was one of the careers listed on this family studies thing. You go family studies and then you go on and do a master's in music therapy. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. I never really planned on doing a master's. I didn't really plan on going and doing college anyway. And so I just started in the field, and my first day in the actual program, they have like an intro to family studies seminar. You do like some internship hours. You get to know what's there and what you want to do. Somebody said they wanted to be a marriage educator. And I was like, tell me more. Tell me more. Because I've always been kind of a hopeless romantic. I love relationships. I love to hear people's stories. I love like Love is Blind, Married at First Sight. I love to see like the relationship dynamics. It's just something I love. And so from there on, I decided I want to become a certified family life educator, and I want to focus on marriage. And that was in 2014. So however many years ago that was. And so that's been my goal ever since. And as soon as I found that as a field, I've just loved every single thing I've done in it and loved everything about it. So it's kind of where it started.
Yeah. So just for those who are curious, because I'm actually really curious too, how does this differ from, let's say, a marriage counselor or what I do as a marriage coach? Where do you see how it differentiates?
So I actually have a post on this. If you want the link, I can send you the show notes.
Yeah, let's
breaks down what's the difference between marriage education, marriage coaching, and marriage therapy. And I think the big difference is between family life education and so like marriage education and marriage counseling. So counselors do a little bit more schooling, and it's a very rigorous training, and they have a lot of time they have to put into being able to work one-on-one with couples and to give them have those skills and stuff to help couples a lot of times get out of these really, really, really hard situations. I kind of view it as, and I don't like to view it as this way because I think therapy is very valuable for everyone, even if you're not in trouble. And I know a lot of couples who have a therapist in their back pocket, and they go like once a quarter or once every 6 months to just say, here's where we're at. Here's what we're doing. What can you help us with? But sometimes I think I view the easiest way to view it is education is the fun part and counseling therapy is the hard, not always so fun part. A lot of couples, it's when they're in trouble. Education is preventative. And so it's something that I'm doing, that I'm sharing. It can be, I want to say prescriptive. It can be something that you do to work on your marriage when you have problems. But a lot of times I'll recommend people go to a therapist, and I don't do one-on-one stuff where you're a coach. And so I think coaching kind of settles in the middle.
Yes.
You can't do quite as much as a therapist. There are some limitations. There is a line there.
Right.
It's a little bit more than education because it's more one-on-one and a little bit more intensive and specific to the couple. So I have chosen, I thought about doing coaching for a while. I've chosen to just do the education. I love sharing. I'll be doing webinars and putting together in-person workshops and just putting together, whether it's a podcast interview or a post on my website or a little piece of education that's in a reel or a TikTok. It's things that you can do now to better your relationship, to hopefully not hit those points where you need lots and lots of help. Although those things still come up, and they are sometimes not preventable just because of life situations. You need a little bit of extra help. But that's kind of where the difference is. They're kind of at two different spectrums in what you can do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you. So why is it important for couples to connect on a personal and romantic level during the parenting stage? Like, this is a really big one for a lot of parents, right? Like, we go from dating and having that be a high to getting married. Then you have another high. Then you have kids, and it's just like, boom, big transition. You as in women, right? Like, women, including myself, and I'm sure you have experienced this too. We suddenly get this tunnel vision where it's all about the kids. We have to make sure they are growing up to be kind human beings. We're trying to keep them alive. We're making sure they're eating the right foods. And, there's just so many decisions that are being made that our marriage unintentionally starts to take a back seat, and it goes lower and lower down our list of priorities to the point where it kind of doesn't become a priority. And a lot of couples end up not actually looking like a couple when they're out. It just looks like they're co-parenting, right? And I've even heard couples say, like, no, I just feel like a roommate right now. Like, we're like passing each other like sailboats out in sea. There's like no connection there anymore. So can you share with us why it's so important to keep that connection alive, and what happens when you don't?
Yeah, I think something that's important to remember is you were husband and wife, you were lovers, you were romantic partners first, best friends, whatever, having fun together, enjoying life. You decided that you would be good partners in everything else, whether that's managing a household, parenting, running a business, whatever that looks like for you. And I kind of think it's important to separate those. Like, you are parenting partners over here, and it's important to be good partners and be on the same page and work towards that together. And it does take a lot of work. Maybe you're business partners. I feel like, were you and your husband business partners at one point?
No.
I couldn't remember who is and who isn't, and I couldn't remember. But some of them are business partners, right? And they've got that piece, and they can get so caught up in like always working together, and everything they do can be about work, because all these things, like, you could think about them, talk about them all the time, and never run out of like what needs to be done or concerns or a to-do list, right? And the house is like the same. That's kind of, I think, one of ours is like, it feels like there's always projects in the house, and we're running a house, and we're running our budget and managing our food and whatever that looks like. But they're all different pieces of you as a partnership. And it's important to remember that your foundation was that friendship, romantic love. We work well together. We have fun together. And so I always think, and I think that's where that comes into play, is a lot of times the stress, the demands of life get in the way, and you forget to have fun together, or how to have fun together, or how to connect on that personal level in like, what are you enjoying right now? Not just like, what do we need to do for this kid? What do we need to do for this kid? How are we going to have money to do this project for the house? Or we have this deadline coming up for work. And so it's really important to remember that's the foundation of that solid partnership. And if you lose that and you lose that other piece, your whole entire relationship crumbles. And I think you see that a lot. There's a term called gray divorce, and it's something I'm really intrigued by. Couples, I think now they're saying 50 and older, who are divorcing, whether they sometimes their second or third relationship. A lot of them, it's their first relationship, and they've been married. You know, we see a lot of divorce in these early years in marriage, like first 10 years. There's a little bit in between, and then there's been a huge uptick in these later life divorces. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And my personal theory that I have not researched and proven yet is that while they give lots of reasons for, you know, I've done some research and seen them say, like, we just drifted apart. They're not the same person they were when I married. We don't enjoy the same things. I don't like being with them. The kids moved out, and we realized, like, we were really good at parenting together, but that was about it. And my personal belief is that comes from not making each other and that romantic relationship a priority through all of that, to where that falls away and all that's left is, like you said, being roommates or being partners in a business, and you can go your separate ways and be totally fine. And so I think a lot of couples get to that point where the kids have moved out and they have paid off their house and they're living, and instead of getting to enjoy that with each other, they either start over and have to get to know each other again and rebuild a relationship, or they decide to call it quits.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that a lot in couples that, so I only work with women, but I've seen that in their marriages, in my clients' marriages, because you are so focused on what's in front of you, what's demanding more of your time, like the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing. And we stop being intentional about, well, how do I see my life in the future? I'm going to have to do things today going forward to make sure that that's a possibility. And when we stop connecting and making that a priority, even if it's not convenient, because let's be real, it's not convenient at all to maintain a marriage while you're raising kids. Like, they're often competing against each other. And it is that belief that's like, well, I want to grow old with you. I have this desire to still be connected, to be that fun old couple that you see, at the farmer's market. You're like, oh my God, they're so dang cute. I want to be that. Well, they didn't just let it happen. They had to work towards that happening, right? And so when you become an empty nester, who are you going to be left with if you're still married, right? Are you going to have a stranger in your house? Or are you going to be like, yes, we have the house all to ourselves and we get to do whatever we want now. Our kids are grown and responsible. They can handle themselves. Or is it going to be like, shoot, our buffers are gone?
Exactly.
Yeah, so crazy. So what else do you notice happening when connection starts to fall off?
I think that's when you see a lot more contention. I think there's always going to be misunderstandings and disagreements and things like that. But if you have that good connection and that good relationship and you understand what the other person is going through and you truly love and care for that person, it's a lot easier to listen to their point of view, to see things from their side, even if you don't agree with them. I feel like those things are a little bit less contentious and less, they create less upheaval in your home and your relationship. I know when my husband and I are connected really well, those things that could become a huge problem for us don't feel as big of an issue as when we may not be as connected as we want to be. It keeps that relationship strong or that foundation strong and doesn't shake it as hard. We see people looking to put the romance back in their relationship. How do I bring back that spark? I just don't get the butterflies. I'm not lovey-dovey about this person. I see them and I'm like, hey, how's it going? It's like the ships in the night, like you talked about, or roommates. We're just here and we don't hate each other, but we're not as eager to see each other as we used to be. And I think it shifts. I talked about recently that my husband and I used to text all the time. And I always am like, I wish I could access those texts back then. I'm like, what did we talk about all day long? I'll still text him. And sometimes it's texting him hey, can you come home a few minutes early so I don't have to take both kids to this thing and you can just take one? Or what do you want for dinner tonight? Or,
logistical things.
Yeah. And it just depends. Sometimes I'm sending this morning I sent him a really funny Instagram reel and he was in the bathroom and he could have come and seen it, but I just sent him this reel. I joke that his sixth love language is memes. He loves memes and funny.
Oh yeah.
And he always finds them after I've seen them. And then I feel bad because he's like, did you see? He's like, this one's so funny. And I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that last week. It is really funny though. I have to remember to humor him. I found one today and I was like, it's so relatable. Just watch it. And he was like, okay. And then he watched it and he was cracking up and I was cracking up and we didn't watch it together. It was just funny. And we were still laughing about it as he was leaving for work. And so it's just those simple things that I feel like that connection is different though. we are connected stronger and we're connected on a different level. Because those things, when I would share them, I think about like, I do remember one of the first text conversations we had. He was going to lunch with some work friends or something. And he was like, oh, I'm sitting at this mall and I'm people watching. And it's funny. And we both love people watching. And he would share something. And I was like, oh, and I was like so excited. He was thinking about me and stuff. But that connection now is different. Like it feels good, but it's different. Does that make sense? And so,
yeah, definitely. I think relationships go through different seasons and cycles. And what really matters is identifying whether that's still making progress towards your overall goal. Like when you are old and gray, where do you want to see your relationship with your partner, right? If it's not working towards it, then something needs to change. If it's actually like taking steps away from that, something needs to change. Not to say that you have to be like this crazy, flirty, hot and heavy couple the whole entire time. Like if you are, congratulations. Can you give us some of that, secret sauce? But that's not most relationships. And even if you're not that way, it doesn't mean that your relationship isn't healthy or successful, right? But there does still need to be some thread of connection that is keeping you together outside of the kids, right? I feel like that often becomes a common denominator of like what you're connected through.
Yeah. And caring about each other as more than I see all these TikToks where they're showing like how they co-parent well with the other couple. And I think that's awesome and that's great. And they do care about each other. But it's not the same care about each other on a romantic, personal level. Does that make sense? Like that is their sort of connection, is the kids, and they care about each other as parents and care about making sure their kids have a good life. Or you care about each other as business partners and wanting each other to succeed, or whatever that looks like. But it's not caring about each other on that personal level, and really like it encompasses everything that you have.
Oh, for sure. And I kind of want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about the contention piece, right? And it kind of made me think of my boys. So I have an almost 13-year-old and a 6-year-old. And there will be something that my daughter does that is exactly the same that my younger son does, but my older son will respond differently. Right. So take a look at your kids and how that shows up. When there is no connection there, when you don't get along as well, you're going to be ticked off a lot easier, as opposed to when there is connection there, when you are regularly going on dates or setting aside time during the week to really spend time together, whether it's playing games together, whether it's watching a movie together, or, maybe having extended pillow talk or whatever it is, building on that level of intimacy and connection, you're going to be more forgiving. You're going to let things roll down your back and be like, oh, he's just having a hard day. And while I don't like how I was treated, I'm not going to react as negatively. I'm going to maybe talk about it and see how I can support him and let him know, hey, I really didn't like that. And I understand why that happened, versus like, how dare he treat me like that? And then maybe you give the cold shoulder, maybe you're slamming some cabinet doors, or however it is that you generally respond to triggers in your relationship. So it really makes a big difference, even if it means all that work with planning, right? Like it is so well worth it, because that tension in your house permeates the entire house. Like your kids feel it, you wake up dreading the day. And I don't know if it's safe to speak for you, right? Like myself and Amberly, we want you to feel like your home is harmonious and peaceful and a fun place to be. And connection is that answer.
And you look forward to being with each other and being home and being there.
Yeah. Like imagine if your house felt like a sanctuary, where you felt like a sense of relief and safety when you're home. And that can't happen where there's a bunch of tension. Yeah. So I just wanted to touch on that, because it really is a big deal. It's not a luxury. Like connection is not a luxury. It is actually as essential as self-care is.
I agree, for sure.
Yeah. So what are some practical ways for couples to connect every day?
Yeah, so one of my favorites is to have a connecting ritual. And so kind of talking to the parents and the moms and going to that thing that I think everyone really works on. You see so many like parenting books and so many parenting tips and things floating around. Think about like the things that you do with your kids as they leave out the door for school. Do you give them a kiss? Do you have a saying you say? Is there something you guys do during breakfast? Right now, ours is we turn on music and make it more fun, right? So connecting rituals are like a step above routine, but not quite as intense as traditions is how I see it. Is it something that makes the routine a little bit more special, that makes it a little extra, that makes it more fun and enjoyable and something you look forward to, and it's memorable and makes a difference. So thinking about like bedtime. They have like songs you sing, or you might have 3 questions you ask your kids at bedtime to connect, or maybe at the dinner table. So thinking about those things, how can you implement those in your marriage? So I'll give you a few ideas, and I have tons of ideas. We'll talk about that in a second. But like after dinner, okay, everyone goes and does their own thing. Maybe kids are finishing homework, they're playing, they went outside, they're getting ready for bed, whatever that looks like. You and your spouse can clean up together. Maybe one of you is doing the dishes while the other person's clearing the table and wiping the counters down, or whatever that looks like. Turn on some music and talk. Dance while you do it. Do the task, something that has to be done. We kind of talk about like habit stacking, like take something you're already doing and make it a little bit extra special and connecting. Instead of one of you going one way and dealing with the kids, or, one of you tackling cleaning up, I don't know, something else. Well, you know what I mean? 2 different
Dividing
tasks.
and conquering. Yeah.
Dividing and conquering. Yeah. Which I think there is good to that, but I've heard a lot, don't divide and conquer as much, because you can connect. It might take a little bit of extra time, but it's going to be worth it because you're going to connect and do it together. So pick some tasks that you can do that with. Maybe a couple that I knew would always end up staying late after work. And so instead of counting on being home together for bedtime sometimes or for dinner, they always woke up in the morning and they'd go into work like half an hour later, planning to stay at least half an hour later, but knowing it was always going to be later than that. And they had control over their morning, and they would sit and have a quiet breakfast. They would talk, they would share coffee, whatever that looks like. And so they made that work for them, knowing that they had busy lives and that wasn't always going to be an option to sit down to dinner together, or go to bed at the same time, or hang out and decompress at night. One of the ones that I heard during the pandemic is this couple started, and I think there's a lot of hard things that came out of the pandemic, but I also think there's a lot of good. I saw couples be more intentional with date night and find ways to have fun and connect at home, and I think that's continued. I read a study where there was actually a rise in marriage satisfaction. I think we all saw like couples getting divorced, especially like famous couples, and there's a lot that goes on that. But marriage satisfaction across the board actually was up during the pandemic, and it's recently gone back to normal. So whatever made that, I'm sure there's a lot that's contributed to that.
Less distractions.
I know, right? Time together, able to focus. But one couple said they always had popsicles in their freezer. And so after the kids were in bed, they would go grab a popsicle and climb into bed under the covers and eat their popsicle until. And it doesn't take you that long to eat a popsicle, right? Like maybe 5 if you're my child who bites popsicles, or 20 minutes. But just, it was something we looked forward to. It was something so simple. And it allowed them to talk and connect every single day and just have fun together and enjoy being together. So it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be grand. It's just something that helps you connect every single day. And it doesn't have to be the same thing every single day either. Maybe 2 nights a week you clean up together, and the rest of the week you do something different. Or 1 night a week you go to bed at the same time, but you both don't go to bed at the same time every other night because of something. So finding what works for you, and just finding something every single day that's going to give you an opportunity to connect and talk. And I think the important part is finding time to have fun together and setting aside those other things. Like you can do 15 to 30 minutes without talking about the kids or the house projects or work or whatever else. Like just talk about each other. Like, what did you do today? Like, my husband recently said, oh, I have a new favorite song. I just recently rediscovered this artist. I forgot that it's so good. And he just loves to be like, I want you to listen to this song. And he loves to share it with the kids too, but then he'll share the song with the kids and then tell me why he loves the lyrics so much. And it's just simple things like that that help you continue to get to know each other and connect, because my favorite color is always going to be purple, but my favorite song is going to change kind of on a daily basis, or like this one over and over and over again, right? I know my husband's favorite movie is always going to be Twister, but whatever his favorite snack is currently is going to change. For right now, it's popcorn. He loves popcorn. Give him all the popcorn, where before it might have been beef jerky or something, you know what I mean? So being aware of that, and it's just those simple things that you did when you were dating, but not as intensive.
Yeah, no, I really like what you shared, because especially if it's not in your routine right now to connect, having a ritual could really help you become more intentional about it. I'm gonna be honest, we don't have a ritual, but I'm also very intentional. Anytime I feel like, oh, we're a little disconnected right now, like we're heading towards disconnected, I will do something or suggest something, and then we'll just do it. Like, so it's very simultaneous, or not simultaneous, it's very spontaneous for us, but I like pretty much have like my pulse on the marriage pretty regularly, or I'll notice like, oh, I'm getting annoyed of him more than usual. We need to connect, right? So like I'm aware of these things or signs to do more stuff in the marriage to connect us deeper. But if you're not there yet, sit down, have a moment together to come up with, hey, let's introduce something into what we're already doing. Like Amberly said, habit stacking. Like if you haven't read it yet, Atomic Habits is a really great book. That's where the concept came from. It's so that you're not having to remember something else to do. You're now just adding a slight twist to something you're already doing. And so every time you do that thing, you now add this slight twist. So it's much easier to integrate into your life. And then the second thing is, don't assume that just because you've known your partner for an extended period of time, whether you've been lovers since high school or you just like met in your adult years, never assume you know everything about your partner, because we're constantly growing and evolving. So always have that lens of, oh, what else can I learn about you? That's intriguing, right? And having that separateness of your life is what's going to make your relationship more interesting too. Like not too much separation, but still having your own hobbies, your own friends that you go hang out with, whatever interests that you have, so that you can come together and have more to talk about.
Yes. And so life is more fulfilling that way as well.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. So do you have any other tips that you want to share before we talk about your amazing book that you have out?
Yeah. I was trying to think. One of the things I always talk about is date night, and I'm just going to touch on it for a second. But date night, I think, is super important, and it's something that I always, again, this is another thing that came from the pandemic. People were like, oh, we can't go out together for like forever, and so they started doing at home, and it was like my favorite. I was like, let me tell you what to do together that doesn't have to be going out or being around a ton of people or spending a lot of money, because restaurants were closed or not, only doing takeout. And you saw people, I think a common one I saw is people would take like a table, and sometimes it was like a fancy setup and sometimes it wasn't, or they'd go to they'd set up their picnic, their dinner in the parking lot of wherever they got takeout, or they would take it to a local market, do that. But date night, I think when we say date night, you automatically think like spending a bunch of money, getting a babysitter, going
steak,
to
lobster.
Yeah, like being out so late, like this is what date night is, right? And date night for me is anytime you take to intentionally connect and have fun with your spouse. So last week for us, we did go on one of those, like, go to brunch and go to a movie, and we were gone for a few hours, and the kids were at grandma's the whole time, because all the teenagers are way too busy to babysit right now. But we also did one in the middle of the week where we set up a picnic in the backyard, and the kids had their own picnic, and we made it fun for them. They set theirs up as fancy as ours. We did it with a local picnic company. But even just taking, like, a blanket outside and, like, having a picnic, and the kids can have their picnic across the way, you know, and you make it fun for them. And or it could be after the kids go to bed, you sit down and you have that one show that you love to watch live every single week, or as it's released on streaming, right? That's like a new thing. Like the Great British Bake Off is releasing a episode every week, and you sit down and you take time to watch that together after the kids are in bed, right? And it's not just like binging because you're decompressing, or that's just what you're doing to be comfortable together at the end of the day. It's intentionally watching a show together and connecting over it and discussing it, and not just like checking out from your relationship.
Yes.
So it can be simple things. It can be grabbing a popsicle and sitting in your bed, or one I've seen talked about a lot that I love is couples taking showers together. And it's not necessarily to like create a physical, intimate connection, although it can, but it gives them time to be together alone. There's nothing else going, right? You're not going to bring your phone into the shower and be scrolling it. You're not going to be doing a project. You're just there with each other. My friend says it's her way of washing off everything from the day. And she like discusses everything with her spouse while she's like physically washing her body. Like it's symbolic and just like a physical wash it all off from the day. And other people, they just love that's their time to connect. So those date nights, that's something I'd suggest with couples. Are a really great time to connect. And they're kind of taking that connecting ritual and that extra step where it's that more fun. Whether it's something you both enjoy, you're going to play tennis, or you're learning something new. Maybe you're like going to a dance class or learning dances in your living room with YouTube, whatever that looks like having something fun to do at least once a week. And do make time to get out together, but it doesn't have to be every single week. And just because you're not getting out together every single week, couples they used to say like, oh, we haven't been on a date in forever. We haven't had date night in forever. And I'm like, well, why not? It's so easy to do at home. Let me give you all the ideas. So I think that's something that date night is an important piece in addition to that connecting ritual. That's one I would highlight.
Yeah. And I think the most important part about date night, and it could be just like date day or date morning, whatever, like fits into how you want to build your life, is about quality time. That's it. Like that's the only thing. So you get to redefine what date night means to you. You don't have to spend a ton of money, but you can if you want to. And my husband and I, we don't go on weekly, like traditional, what you call dates every week. Like we have actually one weekend a month where my mom and my stepdad take the kids overnight, and we have a little over 24 hours to hang out with each other. So this past weekend actually was our date weekend for the month of October. And we just had lunch somewhere, and then we drove out to the beach. We parked the car and set up like a cozy kind of situation in the bed of the truck where we were facing the sunset. We played Scrabble together until it was time to go have dinner. And in that case, we actually went to have steak, but that doesn't always happen for us. And it was amazing. Like it wasn't anything crazy. And the best part of it was free because it was just us in the sunset with some blankets and games, and we had a great time. And it really is just about like, what do you want to do together? How do you want to feel when you spend time together? So for me, it was like, I want this date to feel cozy. And that's exactly what we created. And it gets to change, right? Yeah. So definitely start to follow Amberly on Instagram, because she's got a ton of ideas on how you can make date night at home and out really, really fun and super creative ways. So tell us about your book.
Yeah. So my book, Beyond Date Night, I wrote, I don't even know, a year or so ago. And it is based on things like your connecting rituals. It's the simple things you can do every day to make your marriage a priority. And so it's things like expressing gratitude. And so there's 20 different chapters, 20 different ideas. So something like I shared, create a connecting ritual. And each chapter shares, like, so it's create a connecting ritual. And I talk about what a connecting ritual is and why it's important. And then there's a section on how you're going to create a connecting ritual. What is that going to look like for you? And then tons of ideas for each one. So kind of like I shared here, like clean up together and dance. Like there's those ideas that you can take and turn into your connecting ritual, or you can take and adjust to fit your interests, your lifestyle. So there's 20 different ideas, things like express gratitude. And then what does that look like? Why is it important? What impact is it going to have on your marriage? And how can you do that more every single day? And they're things that they're very, very simple to do. It's just saying thank you is so, so simple to do, but it's something we might have forgotten. Or maybe you're really, really good at saying thank you, but you want to add something else. And I always encourage couples, pick one thing that you kind of, like we talked about habit stacking, that works well with your marriage right now that you can start. Don't try to do it all at once.
Yes.
Couples, like if you haven't been on date night in forever and you feel like you're disconnected, don't plan a 4-hour or like your overnight date.
Yeah, that's
you're
a
not
lot.
going to know what to talk about. It's not going to be fun to be together. Start with like an ice cream date or a coffee date, or just sitting on the back porch playing a card game for 10 minutes, and then build up from there. So that's kind of the idea of creating those connecting rituals, or creating those moments every day that you're making each other a priority. And it will become easier, and I always say it will become routine, but not routine. Like you don't want it to be so routine that you're not even thinking about it. One of them in there is I talk about saying I love you and meaning it. So it might be something that like you're just like, yep, love you. And you hear people say like it's become so routine for them that they hang up the phone with like the bank teller or the principal at the school, and they're like, love you. And they're like, oh crap. And it's funny and it's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm not saying that they're not really thinking about it when they say it, but really thinking about it. Like,
yes. And the kisses too. I call them drive-by kisses.
Yes. When it's just like, here's my kiss. Like,
yes,
you can take 5 seconds and give a good kiss. It's not going to kill you. And so things like that. So that's what this book is. I have an ebook version they can download, or there's a paperback copy as well you can order. And I love it so much. Like I kind of set it aside after I finished writing it, right? And then I picked it back up recently, and I've been reading through it myself. And I'm always like, oh yeah, that's a solid idea. I really like that.
I love that.
I do it myself. I use it myself. I'm like, I need to do something a little bit more. What can I do this week? And it might be something that I'm just doing myself. And then I'm like, hey, I want to create this connecting ritual. What's something you think would be fun for the two of us to do, right? I don't necessarily be like, husband, I need you to tell me thank you more. And you need to mean it. Like, I'm going to start doing that myself. And chances are he's going to follow suit. So some of them are like, intentionally sit down as a couple and discuss this and decide what you're going to do. And other things are like, maybe you're reading this as a couple and saying, we're going to try to do this more this week. Or maybe you just do it on your own and see what happens when you're doing it, making the efforts. So book is, and it's really good.
Yeah.
I'm biased, but it's really good.
Definitely get it. And I just want to highlight something that you said to the listeners, because I very much come from this philosophy as well in my coaching, especially because I only work with women. I don't work with couples. You mentioned that you will start doing something. You're not going to outright be like, hey, I need this, but you're going to start paving the way, and your husband will follow suit. I think a lot of women underestimate how much influence they have when they start doing things. Like, they're going to pick it up. They're like, oh, that's different. Feels kind of nice. Maybe I should start trying that. Or maybe I'll start trying something else. Like, it'll get them thinking. So don't underestimate and let your frustration or resentment or bitterness be like, no, we're going to wait until he does something for me to do something. Because if you do that, nothing's going to change. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And as time goes on, it's going to be more difficult to get back on track. So don't let your resentment and your pride get in the way of you taking that first step towards reconnecting in your marriage, because it matters more than your ego.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I totally agree. I agree for sure.
Yeah. So what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, my website is prioritizemarriage.com. I try to put content there regularly. As I'm finishing my graduate degree, it doesn't come as regularly as I would like, though there's still really great content over there. I'm most active on Instagram at Prioritize Marriage or TikTok, and I am always sharing quick little tips. Instagram is where I'll pop into stories and be like, let me tell you about something I learned today, or let me tell you about an experience, or let me tell you something I was thinking when I watched the show, or whatever. So I would say Instagram is the best place to hang out with me, but I try to do a little bit everywhere. So wherever they're at. If they feel like Twitter is a great place to hang out, or Facebook, I'll be there.
I love it. I love it. I haven't dove into TikTok or Twitter yet, so we'll see. So you said you don't do coaching. So what's the best place or way for people to get in your space and learn from you? Is it the book?
I would say the books or my website is where I put a lot of the education right now, because it's easy to write something at midnight and post it. My goal after I finish my degree is to start offering online workshops and webinars and webinars. So that's my ultimate goal. I just can't do it all right now. I am also going to be starting a podcast, which I think we've talked about. You can chat too. But for right now, I think Instagram or the website are the best places to learn from me. That's where I share. I try to share like little bits and pieces of what I'm sharing on the website over on Instagram, because I know that's a really great way for people to consume. So that's where I'm sharing a lot of my education right now. And then as it grows, there will be announcements of where else you can get ideas and tips and resources to make your marriage a priority. So
amazing. Definitely check out her Instagram and her website, because it's loaded with resources. So before I let you go, I love to ask my guests some questions so that our listeners can get to know you better. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So I'm a foodie. So I'm going to ask, what's a food you can eat every day and never get sick of?
Okay. This is really very specific. If you've ever been to Chick-fil-A for breakfast, they have an egg white grilled sandwich. So it's like an English muffin with grilled chicken, which is like, I don't know how they do their chicken, but it's magical, and egg and cheese. And I love that, but you have to combine it with their frosted strawberry lemonade. My mom says it sounds like the weirdest combination, but I could have that every single morning and just be the happiest woman in the world.
All right. That is very specific. I love it. I love it. Where's your favorite place to vacation?
I have loved, I've been to San Francisco a couple times, and I love San Francisco. But we've also done like San Diego and Oceanside, and I love that as well. So probably the West Coast. And I have dreams to drive up the West Coast from like California all the way up. So
yeah,
I would say San Francisco or like San Diego area, my favorite.
Well, from a native Californian, I approve. I love California. I don't think I'll ever leave. All right. So last question is, you talked about songs, right? So what's your current favorite song to jam out to?
Oh, I was going to think about this one, and it was going to be specific to the day of hell. Right now, I really love anything from Pink. That's really weird, but Pandora introduced me to Pink, and like My Attic from Pink is really good. Or I think it's called I'm Here.
Oh, and yes, that's a powerful one.
And I'm like,
that one makes me cry.
No, it's so good. I'm like, why haven't I been listening to Pink? But I always can jam out to like any. My Pandora station that I jam out to is Shut Up and Dance Radio, and it has songs like upbeat, like Shut Up and Dance, like all those. So music is hard for me. It's hard to pick a favorite, but
yeah, I'm the same.
Right now, Pink, when she comes on my Pandora, I jam out. So
amazing. Well, thank you so much, Amberly, for being a guest on this show. I cannot wait to hear what you all think of this episode and what you are going to try and do differently to maintain and build that connection in your marriage, because it is so worth it. You are worth having that happiness and joy and deep connection in your life. All you got to do is set some time, be intentional, and just do it. And if you need resources, go check out Amberly. I'm going to put all her information in the show notes. So go check that out. Go follow her, give her some love and say, hey, I found you on Michelle's podcast, so she knows. And I hope you all have a great time connecting, because it is so worth it. Your family's worth it. You are worth it. Your future's worth it. And so is your partner. But until next time, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll catch you back here next week. Bye. If you like this podcast, then you'll want to join my private Facebook community, Marriage and Motherhood. The fights and the disconnect you're currently experiencing doesn't have to be how things go for the rest of your life. If you're ready to give your marriage a makeover, come join the Marriage and Motherhood community to learn how to create a healthy, happy, and connected marriage that you actually enjoy and your kids can look up to. Thank you so much for listening to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I hope that this episode helped you deepen your relationship with your husband and, more importantly, with yourself. I hope to see you inside the Marriage and Motherhood community, and I look forward to supporting you in there. Otherwise, see you back here next week. Bye.